talking to people and hanging out with people who you never would have talked to before, hung out with before. I'll ask people, hey, why don't you talk to so-and-so? And they'll say, we have nothing in common. I'm like, yeah, of course. You want to talk to people, only people you have stuff in common with. But why don't you just talk to yourself? The conversation's probably better. And we have these frank and open conversations that just get us nowhere. It gets us to where we began. We start with the end. Talk to people who you don't agree with. You talk to people from different backgrounds. You can start to live multiple lifetimes when you talk to people who live other lifetimes. I know my own experiences, and some of you in here who talk, I know your experiences a bit because you talk a bit. And many of you in here, I will never know the world through your eyes because you won't write down a word, you won't say a word. And this is one of the reasons that people get so miserable and angry in life as they get older. It wasn't like that in my day. Of course it wasn't like that in your day. And in your day, it wasn't like that in your parents' day, or your grandparents' day, or your great-grandparents' day. Nothing is at rest. Everything is in motion. Nothing is at rest. None of us steps into the same river twice because change is inevitable. Now we can sit there melancholy and say, things have changed, or we can sit there and go, things have changed. We get to experience new shit. If nothing ever changes, well then that's like boring. That's like talking to people who you have everything in common with. The point I'm making here is that for some people, all of their happiness resides here, in memories. And the only way they have access to happiness is to say things like, remember when? Maybe when it's time to get into the box. Because at that point, you're not really living, you're just waiting. Right? And what is success in life? Because wouldn't that most of us believe is success in life? I can tell you. It's to burn always with a hard gem-like flame and to maintain ecstasy. That's success in life, the burning. Like these are the best years of your life. I'm sure you've heard that before. How many of you guys, if these were the best years of your life, would be a terrible curse? If these were, in fact, the best years of your life.
Life is suffering.
Yeah, but does it have to be so much suffering? I guess that's the question.
Yeah.
Life is suffering, but does it have to be so much suffering? We oftentimes ask this question. In fact, we just got done looking at this stuff from Frankl, asking where does happiness come from? And he gives us a really good answer, actually. If you recall, he says that happiness can't come from anything. You can't pursue happiness. Happiness has to ensue from what we're presently doing. We have to do something and then find that it makes us happy. And that's how we find out what makes us happy. We try things. And oftentimes we try things that we never would have tried before in the past. Like if you think, like for example, I think I've mentioned before, I can't taste much. I have very little sense of taste. So what that means is I don't really cook much, man. Like 90% of my diet is peanut M&Ms and chicken tendies. Tendies, not nuggies, because I'm a grown-ass man. So last year, I started cooking, or I guess the year before last, I started cooking. I can't taste much, but I figured it's a skill, why not have it at some point? And it turns out I actually kind of enjoy it, even if I can't taste it afterwards very well, you know? But it comes from something that I never would have ever tried before in the past. And the reason I tried it, by the way, was because, so I had to be here before last, because I had ACL surgery, and I couldn't I couldn't train. So I had to find something to do to occupy my time, the time that I would normally spend at the gym. I was trying to fill that time with other things, and so I started cooking. I enjoyed it. It was actually pretty all right. Nothing I ever would have tried before, you know? Try talking to people and hanging out with people who you never would have talked to before, hung out with before. I mean, it blows me away. I'll ask people, hey, why don't you talk to so-and-so? And they'll say, we have nothing in common. I'm like, yeah, of course. You want to talk to people, only people you have stuff in common with. But why don't you just talk to yourself? The conversation's probably better. And you understand yourself. Why talk to people who only you have stuff in common with? Because then the conversation's easier. Well, yeah, but that's easier doesn't necessarily mean better. We have these frank and open conversations that just get us nowhere because it gets us to where we began. We start with the end in it. Talk to people who you don't agree with. You talk to people from different backgrounds. You can start to live multiple lifetimes when you talk to people who have lived other lifetimes. And I know my own experiences, And some of you in here who talk, I know your experience is a bit because you talk a bit. And many of you in here, I will never know the world through your eyes, man, because you won't write down a word, you won't say a word. You'll get some bullshit graduation plan and coast, and then later on wonder why you have no happiness and joy. And I say this from experience because I talk to so many people. You know, so many people, and the regrets that people have are the things that they didn't do. Oh, I should have taken more advantage of this opportunity. I should have tried this. I should have taken a risk or a chance on this one thing. We talk to people, we survey people who are older. In fact, I just saw the survey last semester, I think it was. I may have mentioned it actually, where we look at the regrets that people have. And the regrets that people have in the short term are the things that they did. Oh my God, I can't believe I did this one really embarrassing thing. But that fades within a year of the event. What we find with old people, people in their 70s, I'm sorry, I think it was 65 and older that they surveyed, it was always the things that they didn't try. And I'm talking about, they're going back to like their teen years and their 20s. Oh. I wish I had tried talking to that one person. I wish I had done this. I wish I had gone there. Like, think about that, man. 50 years later, it still bugs you that you didn't take a chance or a risk. Why? Because it could have led to something like this. Because what they know is that they don't have this necessarily. And then we wonder why we don't have this. Well, that's why. We didn't allow enough things to ensue. And I haven't even told you the worst tragedy of it yet. We always ask, where does happiness come from? Here's a beautiful question.
Where does it come from?
Yeah. Say it louder.
Where does it come from?
No. Oh, never mind. That's where it comes from. Sorry.
Oh, ensue.
Oh, wait, no.
Where does it go? Where does it go?
In other words, once you have, so you have happiness, think about something that makes you happy. And then once you've experienced it, where does it go? It goes into your memories.
Memories.
Yeah. And that's, we might think like, oh, but that's a really cool thing because then you always have access to it.
Like Inside Out?
I don't know what that is. I think that there are very few, there are few sadder conversations than ones that begin with, remember when?
Oh.
You know, this is one of the reasons that people get so miserable and angry in life as they get older. It wasn't like that in my day. You know? Of course it wasn't like that in your day. And in your day, it wasn't like that in your parents' day, or your grandparents' day, or your great-grandparents' day. Nothing is at rest. Everything is in motion. Nothing is at rest. None of us steps into the same river twice, because change is inevitable. Now we can sit there in melancholy and say, things have changed, or we can sit there and go, dude, things have changed. We get to experience new shit. If nothing ever changes, well then that's like boring. That's like talking to people who you have everything in common with. Nothing changes. You end where you began. There's nothing that changes in you. You don't get to experience new things. You're like, one of the things I admire about my cat is his ability to eat the same food every single day and be happy about it. Can any of you do that? Well, it tells you that there's something important about variety. There's something important about opportunities and risks and changes. And that's because we take a risk, we encounter something, and then that leads us to happiness. But once we experience it, it can be truly said that once we have it, it's now in the past, it's passing by. Even if you sit there and you can hold on to it in the moment and say, I'm happy right now. And I wonder if you've ever done that before. Really just stopped and assessed where you were, what you were going through, and said, I'm happy right now. There's a moment of happiness in me right now. And then you can start to realize it's soon going to be a memory. And this is where a lot of people's happiness is, especially when they get older, and that's sad. I don't remember the number. I don't remember if it's even this class. It's coming to that. But I was talking to one of my classes a few weeks ago. Maybe it was this one. Maybe I'll just say it, and then you'll tell me if it was you, rather than me just standing up here wondering about it, huh? Yeah. It was an age at which people stopped discovering new music. Was it this class I was talking to about that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it was some. I remember I gave you guys a number where I said I think it was 40, but it was much younger than that. Yeah. And it killed you because, I mean, without music, life would be a mistake. And yet I hear people who, for example, I'm thinking of someone I know in my gym. When he gets a hold of the radio, he always goes back and he plays like 90s hip hop. And I'm like thinking like, dude, I mean, it's fine, it's good, it's nice, but man, it's old. There's so much new stuff. And And people will complain and go, all the new stuff sucks. The new stuff always sucks. Back in the 90s, the new stuff sucked to people who listened to music in the 80s. And people who listened to music in the 2000s thought that the stuff in the 90s sucked. Of course, people always think that, but that's a problem with this. You have to encounter new things. Give it a chance, man. If there's a whole bunch of people listening to something, that doesn't mean it's necessarily good, but it maybe should give us pause to go, what is it about this that they find so good? And then you can start to pick these things apart and then find the joy or find the interesting things in this music. And then once you can find interesting things in it, you start to appreciate it. And happiness ensues, or joy ensues, from having experienced something or encountered something that you otherwise would have been completely shut down to. You know? So, yeah, without music, man, life would be a mistake. And many of us kind of intuitively know that. I have a student in my first period class. He's great, man. He is so contrarian about everything. And he's not trying to be. He just is. My favorite statement from him so far this year is, to be honest, music's overrated. It's like this guy doesn't like anything. And then one day we finally sat him down, the whole class just pointed at him and said, answer this question. We want the goddamn truth. How do you cook a steak? And he didn't want to answer. Guess how he likes a steak?
Well done, Greg.
Well done. Well done.
I was about to say,
Yeah,
on the
I
stove.
actually kicked him out of class that day. I made him stand outside for the rest of the period. He's like, oh, come on, just because the way I like steak. I was like, get the fuck out, dude. This is for your safety and our comfort. I made him stand outside for the last 20 minutes of class just to be like, his steak's well done. But it's thinking like, when I say that, music is overrated, we all intuitively know that that's just a silly statement, because we all know that music is like, it's like the fiber for all the shit that's bottled up in your soul. And the more that you listen to it, the more you can kind of get out of you, and the more you can take in. And so, why would you shut yourself off and just say, nothing good has been produced since 2005, or what, or I'm sorry, I guess it would be this, or whatever. Whatever. But again, because all the point I'm making here is that some people, all of their happiness resides here, in memories. And the only way they have access to happiness is to say things like, remember when?
Oh yeah.
And that's when you start, and that's kind of like maybe when it's time to get into the box. You know what I mean? Because at that point, you're not really living, you're just waiting. You're waiting. And you're always reminiscing about how great things used to be. Because happiness is not just a hope. It's not just something that we're hoping that we can find. It's also a strange sense of memory, a thing that we access. Remember when? Remember when? Remember when? And that's what he means by we're all kings in exile. We're all removed, living separated from the happiness that we used to enjoy. But why is it that we find joy when we're younger and happiness when we're younger? Because everything is new. Why is everything new? Because it is. As you get older, you have to encounter more. When someone says, I've seen it all, get in the box, man. Because there's so much out there that you have not seen. But once you think you have, then you're never going to be able to experience anything. It's just like if you walk into a classroom thinking, I've got nothing to learn here. This is so boring, I can't learn anything here. Yeah, with that attitude, you're right, you won't learn anything. And it's unfortunate, just because you could have gotten better, you could have learned something, if you've been open to it. And who knows, I mean, and I wonder if anybody just hate talking to someone because they're too smart? I just hate talking to this person because they're just too interesting, they just know too much. Oh, shut up. None of us is like that.
They're correct with me.
Well, that's a behavior pattern, though. The person who, well, actually, that's different. I'm talking about a person who knows things and is interested. That's different. It's different. And so, how is it that we can maintain this thing so that we have memories of it, sure. But how is it that we can live in such a way that we're perpetually learning new ways, I guess maybe, or learning new sources of happiness, to always be courting new impressions that can add some kind of like a divine spark to the soul that fires you up every day. I guess I'm asking is, what is success in life? Because wouldn't that most of us believe is success in life? I can tell you. It's to burn always with a hard gem-like flame and to maintain ecstasy. That's success in life.
The burning
Because that's the thing that makes you happy. To burn always with a hard gem-like flame. Yeah. In other words, something that's precious but is always burning inside of you. Doesn't burn you out. And by the way, even if it does burn you out, eventually, I mean, would you rather die from going cold or from burning out? Most people die from going cold. I've seen it. I'm sure all of you have seen it.
I like mine well done.
You like what?
Oh, what? Well, I want to, if you said die cold, and I would rather die well done. Thank you very much.
I don't think I can beat that. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques?